I toured my first wedding venue, which means this whole getting married thing is feeling really, really real. But first, let's backtrack a little bit. If you are new here, hi, I'm Kayla. I am 34 years old and I live in New York City, and I am newly engaged and therefore beginning the wedding planning process. There is a lot that we don't know at this point, but here is what we know so far as we begin this wedding planning process. Number one, we know we're looking at between 200 to 250 guests. I really want a summer wedding. If you know me, you know that I'm a summer girly. I love the summer. I just feel like my best self in the summer, so I've always envisioned a summer wedding. Additionally, my fiance is a teacher, so summer is just the better season for him as well. He is way less stressed and has a lot more flexibility with timing. We pretty quickly decided summer 2026. I know we could push to summer 2027, and it's not that I want to rush this, but for a couple of reasons, I really would like to avoid that. The truth is, our parents are not the youngest, so we want to do everything in our control to try and make sure that they are there at the wedding. Obviously, anything can happen, but there is that fear that the longer we wait, the more things that could potentially happen. Also, I know myself. I think the longer I draw this out, the more crazy I will make myself. So I don't want it to be too quick that I am rushing and am not able to get the things that I want. But I also think if I drew it out another full year, I don't know how my brain would do it. So summer 2026, that's what we're saying. As far as location goes, we live in New York City and both of us grew up in the same town in northern Westchester. Our parents still live in that town. And for us, the majority of our friends are within an hour or so radius of New York City. So we've really been targeting the city as well as Westchester, where we're from. As far as vibe go, I've really gone back and forth on this. At first, I thought I would want kind of this like really New York City vibe wedding, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized I'm not as attached to that as I thought. I realized I really love kind of a coastal beachy vibe. I think I want more light and bright than I originally thought I would. If I was like really going all out as far as what my dream wedding would be, it would probably be somewhere in Montauk, which is about, I would say, 3 or so hours away from New York City at the very least during the peak of summer. So as far as asking people to travel out there, it just doesn't feel realistic. Also, it is so expensive during the summer season. It's just not working for our guests. So I want the energy and vibe of Montauk if I can muster it in some sort of way, but a lot closer to the city and less expensive for our guests that will be coming to potentially stay during this wedding. Another thing I realized I actually really care about is the rain plan. I feel like I have now been to so many weddings that they had rain, and therefore the ceremony is not what the couple had envisioned. And while they were all still stunning and amazing, and at the end of the day, the wedding is about the couple and love and coming together forever, I don't necessarily want to have that like scramble and chaos in the event of rain. I don't want to feel like my dream wedding or my vision for the wedding is really based on whether or not it's raining. I want to feel like whatever the weather is going to be the wedding that I planned. So somewhere where rain is not as much of a problem for what the reception will look like is top on the list for me as well. And this brings me to touring our first wedding venue, the Brooklyn Botanic Garden. This was my first time going to the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, and holy moly, it was stunning. There are a few different spaces where you can have the ceremony. Each one of them is really beautiful in its own unique way. If the weather is good, the cocktail hour can be outside by the lily pond. I had read beforehand that people don't like the rain option for cocktail hour, but I actually really thought it was cute. It's really different. There's this like downstairs area that you walk into, and then there's all these different almost unique exhibits that have different types of plants from different areas. And apparently you're just allowed to like roam free during cocktail hour over there. So I kind of love that it is just a very different experience and definitely not something any of my guests will ever have done. Let's dive into the pros and cons of this venue, because while it is absolutely gorgeous, there's definitely some things I loved about it and then other things that I didn't love so much. Let's start off with the pros. So number one, undeniably, it shows very nicely. Everywhere you look is stunning and lush and so well kept. You just feel like you are in a magical, enchanted garden, and that's because you are. So it makes sense. Number two is it felt like a very well-oiled machine. They host a ton of weddings there. They were literally setting up for a wedding when we were there touring. So you don't feel like you're the first person that's doing this or that they're figuring it out with you. No, they very much know what they're doing, and it's just like a well-oiled machine that does this thing. I also like that the events are done by Union Square Events, which is Danny Meyer's company, and just it's like great to know that like, okay, the caterer is what it is. We don't have to research that. It's just another thing checked off the list. I think a really big pro about the Brooklyn Botanic Garden is it is just so stunning as is. Like you don't really need to add much to it. Even for the ceremony, I'm like, yeah, we put the chuppah up, we have a couple of flowers, but otherwise like, she's good to go. She looks beautiful. She already is stunning and a great venue, so you don't really have to do much. I also really loved that the rain plan is really cool as is, that while I love the idea of the cocktail hour around the lily pond, I don't know, there's something about the other indoor venue that is really cool and quirky, and I like that no matter what happens with the weather, I feel like it's a win-win essentially. And then there are the cons. So my biggest concern about the space is while it is beautiful and would hold 250, which would probably be our max guest, it would be a really small dance floor. I don't know, it was just like a sad little slab of dance floor, and maybe to some people that wouldn't be a big deal, but for me, I'm like, I want people up and dancing. I want them to have space. I want them to not feel like they are overly crowded. I want my hora to be horaing. That is really important to me. So I didn't love that it felt like it would be extremely tight on the dance floor. Also, they mentioned that if you want to have a band, which is something that is really important to us, as my fiance is a musician, so we both love live music and really want that to be part of our wedding, they did recommend having like a smaller band setup if so. So I don't love that we'd have to maybe sacrifice the sound in order to be able to literally fit. And then the other negative that we discussed was the location is not the hardest, but not necessarily the easiest to get to. For friends and family coming from New York City, they could take the subway, obviously can take an Uber or anything of that nature. For friends and family coming from outside the city, from the suburbs, etc., they would have to park in a lot somewhere and then walk over or like pray to the street parking gods that they find something. So it doesn't feel like the easiest venue to get to. And also we have this big concern of like people will possibly leave early if it's not super convenient. Even the fact that there's no hotels in the area. So we don't know what we'd do with that yet necessarily, but we would for sure have to shuttle people a bit of a ways to get them to and from the venue. So logistically, it doesn't feel like the easiest one necessarily for our guest in particular, but we also know, I don't know, like that's definitely a negative and something that my parents pointed out and I think is really valid, but I don't know if that would necessarily be the end all be all for why we didn't choose this venue, because honestly, there is a part of me that it's still in the running. Like there's a big part of me that thinks like we could very much still get married there. So zooming out of how I'm feeling about this whole process, I'm honestly feeling more excited at this point than I thought I would. I think touring the Botanic Garden and just like really thinking about my wedding to Jeremy just made me remember that like at the end of the day, our wedding is going to be amazing because it is about us, our relationship, and bringing together our loved ones. So at the end of the day, it doesn't actually matter where we get married. Wherever we get married is going to be beautiful, is going to be a great venue, is going to be more than nice enough. Like, all these places we're thinking about are gorgeous, stunning places. So there's no right or wrong answer. They're just all going to be different. And I think touring the Botanic Garden and even thinking about like the cons or the aspects of it that I was like a little bit more on the fence about just reminded me that like those are not bad things. Like, people are gonna have a great time if we end up there. They will manage with the dance floor. We will make it work. There is no bad option, essentially. So what is next? We're gonna do some suburban venues next. On my list of venues I know I wanna go to, one is Glen Island Harbor in New Rochelle. I also really wanna tour the Inn at Longshore in Westport. And then another venue I am super curious about, Valley Rock Inn. So we are planning to go visit all of those venues and just continue to narrow it down and figure out what makes the most sense for us. That is about all I have on the wedding planning front for today. If you have done this whole wedding planning process or are currently going through it, I would love any words of wisdom and advice. Otherwise, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel as I'll continue to take you along on the wedding planning process, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for tuning in.